the constituencies so delimited are equally weighted. That is in terms of population parities, okay? And yes, and it is only in a very, special case like the senatorial district, which has to do with equality of state regardless of population. But when you look at the state assembly constituencies and the federal, House of Reps constituencies, population parity is really, really emphasized. And what we have at the moment doesn't seem to satisfy that. And we are now trying to see how we can make sure that Nigerians have equal representations as much as possible.
Okay, let's come back to in here and talk to our guests who are here in the studio. I'll start with you, Meka Onoapo. If you were to look at the issues that were laid before the National Assembly, though Mr. Omega is saying he's not going to go into the details of it, what's your understanding of what has been presented before the National Assembly?
What was presented to the National Assembly is a watering down of the earlier suggestions that were in the Waste report. Because the Waste report talked about the independence of INEC, financial independence, and they also wanted to create 3 organizations out of INEC that would deal with delineating of constituencies, that will deal with independence, that will also deal with the appointment of the chairman of INEC. What the Waste Commission suggested was that the chairman of INEC should be suggested by the National Judicial Service Commission, and he cannot be removed except with approval of the Senate. However, we all know that the report has not been implemented. Rather, there are about 10 of the suggestions were not even brought up at all. So there are attempts to bring up some of these findings, the conclusion of that commission, and bring it up in their own understanding of it. If you want to do reform, you have to look at even the reformers themselves. Are they doing that will make us have confidence that these people are ready to bring about sustainable change in the system?
So if you look at the reformers, do you think that they're bringing that which should make us have sustainable electoral process?
Well, they have some ideas, but with what they are doing, an in-depth study of what they are doing will show that a lot still needs to be done. In some direction, they are moving in the right direction, but a lot needs to be done in there. I was opportune to see an advert in the newspapers the other day looking at their appointment into committees. They were talking about Federal Character Commission, not taking into cognizance the need to have federal character in their appointments. You have committees being chaired even by the chairman of INEC. He has enough duties as it is, as the chairman of INEC, whereas there are other representations that should be in these places. When I looked at the advertorial, I said, look, he shouldn't saddle himself with too much of what he doesn't need to. There are representations that should be in that place that have not been taken into consideration.
So the commissioners should take more responsibility and then let it water down or let it trickle down to different levels.
You see, a situation where we are trying to run a kind of hegemony or something that is not right for democracy. The people at the helm of affairs in INEC, they might have good intentions, but they should put a structure in place that is sustainable. If I have good intentions and I'm chairing committees that should have been chaired by people from other parts of the country, people want to see representation. Democracy is all about representation. Where I find that only people from a certain part of the country are in key positions in INEC, I start to wonder if we will be represented, if their policies will engender democracy, if the wishes of the people will be represented. Because people want to see things done the way the law says they should be done. The Federal Character Commission was set up. People are paid salaries from that commission, from our taxes. So we expect that since the law says federal establishments, states should have representations, we expected INEC, being a federal body, to show it, instead of doing it in a way that people have now took it to the extent of now complaining, which means there is a disconnect.
Yeah.
In fact, some of the people there are feeling agitated, because when I saw that publication, I knew there's the likelihood of even those working in INEC being one of those complaining in that advertorial.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Ayopadoko. Coalition of Democrats for Electoral Reform. What are the things that you have noticed that you reckon need to be addressed and addressed speedily by the National Assembly?
By the National Assembly?
Yes.
Okay. Please let me do a preview of what I've said thus far.
Okay.
Because I'm much more fundamentally involved in this electoral matter.
Electoral reform. Okay.
The only objective of CODA is to ensure that every vote counts.
Okay.
I can say this authoritatively and with all sense of responsibility that INEC did not even provide that in 2011. So I want to talk first of all about voters register. I want to talk about the role of the Nigeria judiciary. I want to talk about, come to think of it, I want to talk about the kind of structure put in place in INEC currently, how they will impinge, how they will impact on the next election. So let me take it one by one. One, Mohammed Uwais report recommended that no sitting executive should appoint the electoral umpire so that there will be independence. That is not what we've done. I repeat what I said when Jega was appointed. Of everybody, including former heads of state, they saw him as a messiah. I had to be recorded live by BBC, Voice of America, when I told them, the guy cannot be a messiah for electoral reform in Nigeria. We are being proved right every day. One, the voters register, for which we campaigned vigorously. I led the presentation before the two houses of the National Assembly. Nigeria gave 85 billion naira to produce a computerized voters register. I say this with all sense of responsibility. That money was a waste.
Why?
The basic things that ought to be done were not done. One, because of the time factor, the producers never test run the machine that are brought to Nigeria. Number two, those who operate them in this country never had the necessary capacity building to operate them. So many of them were faulty and they broke down. Thirdly, the most important of all this is that there is a facility. There is a system called AFIS, Automatic Fingerprint Identification Scheme. That is what's supposed to be the landmark of voters register. Every data you have collected all over the country, from the polling unit, registration unit, to the local government, to the state, and then to the national. The AFIS will enable you to completely or significantly delete multiple registration, underage vote registration, and the likes. I say this, that it was only in Cross River that was done. It was not done nationally, for reason best known to Jiga. For that purpose, they are dishonest in claiming that the voters register that they have now is a correct one. It's a bogus one. Let me conclude this one. It's a bogus register they have. And it's the reason why the INEC failed to produce the voters register before the Presidential Election Tribunal. the Presidential Election Tribunal dealing with General Buhari's case